Why don't we work through exercises 1 and 2 here? It wants us to create variables to hold information about a dog. And so I'll do File, New Class, put it in this labs package we just built. And I'll just call it Dog, I suppose. And I'll build my own main in there. So it'll just be a basic class declaration. I'll type main, hit Control Space, push Enter. And I've got my structure in place here. Well, we want variables for the name of the dog. So you need to ask yourself, what's an appropriate variable data type for the name? Well, if the dog is named Rover, that sure looks like a string to me, and so I'll go ahead and go with that for the data type. How about the weight of the dog? Maybe the dog weighs 45.7 pounds. Well, probably a float would make sense there. I type that in, but it gives me an error. If I save it and try to compile, look under the problems, it doesn't like float. Something's wrong with it. Hover over the top of it. Syntax error on float. Invalid expression. Well, that's because I really screwed it up. Let me fix it a little bit better. I didn't expect to mess it up as bad as I did. Now, this is the error I was expecting to see. Type mismatch. Cannot convert from double to float. That's a better error message. Remember, we need to use a letter F here to take that literal value and store it into a variable of type float. Sorry about that. Let's see. Length of tail. Number, let's just say inches. Int tail length equals, I don't know, 6 inches. There we go. I guess if we didn't have to do int, you could have done short. I suppose you could even done byte. We don't use byte that often. But int's as good as anything, given what we're doing here. Notice all these variables, we're starting with a lowercase letter. By convention, we like to do that. Tail length has 2 words, so we're capitalizing the second word. I think I've heard that called camel case notation. Camel case, I think like the humps on a camel or something of those, along those lines. And whether or not it's friendly, that sounds like a Boolean to me. Friendly, we'll say true. So now we've declared each variable, given it a value, and specified a data type. And we want to print them out too. So sysout, control space. I want to print out the name. I could just type in NA, control space, push enter, and it'll fill in the name. Sysout, control space, WE, control space, enter, etc. So Eclipse makes it where you don't have to do quite so much typing, or at least you don't have to worry so much about your typos that you might introduce. Once you get it in once, you can have it fill in the blanks. And so there we go. We have all of our declarations as variables, and we're printing out the values associated with them. Make sure it's saved, run it, and we do have these displaying appropriately. Some of you may have done this as fields rather than declaring these as local variables. That's okay. The only difference here is that we're going to need to mark these as static. And we'll talk more about statics a little later on in the class. But the basic rule is that a main, if it wants to directly access a field, that field has to be marked static since main is static. And we'll definitely say more about that a little later.